Good morning, brothers and sisters. The past 2 years have been the most trying time of my career, where there were a lot of uncertainties with periods of genuine fear that I would lose my job due to company restructuring. And I'm here to share my experience on how God carried me through the trials of my life, and by His grace, I'm able to give thanks to Him and share my testimony today. I work for a big pharmaceutical company listed in the New York Stock Exchange. I would refer to this company as A. Nowadays, corporate merger and acquisition is a way of driving business growth. So in December 2018, during the time when I was on a very well-deserved vacation, I received a sudden email to attend a town hall by the CEO, and he announced that the company was entering into a joint venture with another company, B, in the consumer healthcare business. The reason for the joint venture was to combine the best of the two companies in terms of business portfolio, brands, and talents. This really sounded very exciting from the news from Bloomberg and Reuters. Well, that sounded great, but there's a catch to this. It will only be very exciting if you had a job. So the new joint venture company needed to reduce headcounts by removing duplicate roles. For example, for every role in the new merger, people who were in broadly similar roles from company A and B would have to compete via a process called assessment and selection. To add to my worry, the company I work for, company A, had only 30% share and company B had 70% in the joint venture. So the bigger stakeholder usually has more say. This people selection process started from the top senior executive levels, including my direct boss, who was called for the first round of selection interviews. Logically speaking, if my boss can get a job, I might have a higher chance because he'll be there to look out for me. So when the first announcement came out, I was really scrambling to find the name of my boss in that announcement. I looked through the whole list, and to my dismay, his name was not there. Then he told us that he failed to get the role and he will be retrenched. And furthermore, he would also not be involved in decision making in the selection for my role anymore. Then reality started to kick in. Suddenly, the fear and anxiety of losing my job became very real. I prayed very hard for strength and wisdom. I was worried for myself, and I had people that I needed to manage who were looking up to me for help and support. When I was just as helpless as them, it was really hard to be there to comfort my team when I myself needed the comfort. Then as time passed by, many people in the company resigned when they found better jobs outside as a way of escape. When someone gets a confirmed job outside, there's really no need to stay behind to wait for something uncertain. So I also started to look out for opportunities, for a way out of this. But to my dismay, nothing really suitable was found. And many people in my team resigned because they found good jobs and the morale of the people remaining was very low. I would like to share two common practices of working in the corporate world when things are not going well. First of all, people do something auspicious. During one business trip to China, people were talking about this famous mountain called Huangshan, which is a symbol of good fortune, and many people climb the mountain before big events like waiting for a job or waiting for promotion. Well, I knew it as a tourist attraction, but I was not really aware of this superstitious belief behind it. I was told that one of our very senior business leaders previously climbed the Huangshan and got promoted. Since it worked well last time, so this time he went to climb it again. And a lady in my team suggested for me to organize a team building exercise by climbing the mountain together with them. I politely declined. I told them I believed that my Father in heaven created the Huangshan, so I would rather rely on my God rather than the mountain. Also, there was a certain route to climb the mountain to get the luck, and it would take 3 nights and 4 days. To be honest, I was really not very keen. Then I looked to God, and He reminded me that He will not lead me where His grace could not keep me. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, He said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." Another popular culture of working in the corporate world, it is often said that it is not what you know, but who you know. Many successful people in the corporate world have their so-called godfathers, or in Chinese we call 靠山, or in Cantonese 开爷, meaning you have a VIP advocate for your career, and this godfather is someone high up in the company hierarchy who likes you, will have your back, and when he gets promoted, he'll look out for you. So for example, when I was working in Switzerland at the global corporate head office of this previous company, one German senior executive was influential, and consequently, many German people butted up to him and climbed the corporate ladder quicker than others. However, when this German retired, those people in his favorite list started losing grounds. So similarly, this time in Company A, many people started to reach out to their own godfathers to lobby for their future. However, I had never had a godfather in the company, so I turned to my Heavenly Father. I was reminded of Psalm 118 verse 8 to 9 that says, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes." At that darkest moment of my career, when no humans could help, instead of a worldly godfather at the workplace, I have God the Father, and He will never retire. He is always in an influential position. He will not plunge in his career and cannot help me. He's not bound to only one company, one country, but wherever I am. Most of all, He loves me and holds my future. He also gives me the peace beyond understanding when I face life's storms, and He refreshes my soul. He is really my best advocate, coach in my career. One day when I was praying, I was prompted to surrender everything to God. If it is His will that I will get the job, then He will give it to me. But if it is not His will, I just needed to obey and say, "Lord, thy will be done." I believe it was not sheer coincidence that I have prepared to share with you today about how I casted my burden on God when I was in that dark hours of my life, and then Pastor Joshua also preached about this in his sermon last Sunday. So Matthew chapter 6 verse 26 to verse 32 says, "Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more of value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to this span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will He not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all." So after several months of waiting, finally it was my turn to be interviewed. As I told you earlier, my boss was not successful in his selection process, so my interviewers were all people from Company B, and it was really against all odds for me. First of all, Company B holds more share than my Company A, and meaning that Company A has less say. Secondly, all the interviewers were from Company B, as my boss did not make it there. Thirdly, the person whom I had to compete for the position was from Company B. This guy had been there for 20 years, and apparently he was doing quite a decent job. His so-called godfather was one of the interviewers. Honestly, this was the only point in my career where instead of seeking new job opportunities, I was being interviewed to determine whether I was there or to be retrenched. Well, to cut the long story short, after my interview, there was quite a long wait before I knew the outcome. I was getting anxious again, and a little voice inside me reminded me that if I didn't get the job, it meant that the job was not meant for me, and God had something else for me. It was really a test of what it meant to cast all my burdens to God. It meant that I should not take the burdens back and put it back on my shoulder again. It meant that if the outcome was not what I wanted, I had to have the faith that God knows better what is best for me. It also meant that I needed to surrender everything when I prayed, God, not my will, but thy be done. Then one fine Saturday afternoon, the hiring manager texted me to ask if I had time to discuss with him about the outcome of the interview. I was really nervous at that time and my heartbeat sped up. I prayed earnestly and asked God to help me accept whatever outcome, as I knew He was in control. Then 10 minutes later, the phone rang and this hiring manager was on the line. He told me that I got the job and the other guy that I had to compete with will be retrenched. So later, I also heard news about the lady who invited me to climb the Huangshan. She did not succeed and was also retrenched. Well, the story does not end here, because I have new challenges in dealing with the new job now in Company B and navigating more intense politics. But if God has brought me safe thus far, I'm determined that His grace will see me through. I have a Heavenly Father to help me walk through the winding paths of my life. And brothers and sisters, I hope that this sharing will help and encourage those of you who are facing similar challenges in your life or facing job security like me. May all glory be to God. Thank you.